The unlucky interstellar miner drifted to a strange galaxy. He encounters alien spiders.
Lights on.
And is continuously frightened. He manages to evade the alien spiders, as well as the crazed alien fireflies. Even sandworms that can swallow a person whole are not to be underestimated. He only has an unreliable artificial intelligence assistant. Will he be able to survive on this dangerous planet? Welcome to the latest sci-fi film. Far away, in the vastness of space, a small asteroid mining ship is slowly drifting. Miner Andy is lying in a sleep pod, deep in slumber. The spaceship has reached the asteroid belt when a massive rock collides and strikes the ship. This accidentally activates a video showing his wife greeting Andy while holding their young son. At this moment, the AI Leon suddenly issues a warning. The ship has sustained catastrophic damage. Leon operated several mechanical arms to help Andy assemble the emergency launch suit and eject him from the damaged hull. The spaceship explodes as it is struck by debris in the asteroid belt. Just as Andy wakes up, his brain has yet to fully process the situation. Leon has already assembled his spacesuit for him.
Breathe.
Understood. Stand by. O2 regulator engaged.
The escape pod is plummeting toward an unknown planet at a speed of 15,000 miles per hour. The hull temperature has exceeded the manufacturer's safe level. Due to the high-speed descent, Leon continuously reports various issues. At one moment it's the stability system that's damaged, and the next, the thruster is failing. The escape pod is crashing to the ground like a cannonball. Andy briefly loses consciousness, his heart rate quickens, and neural activity decreases.
Administering suppository for nausea.
You put anything on my ass. Deactivate personal assistant.
After shutting down Leon, the world finally returns to silence. Andy activates the communication system to call for help, but there is no response on the channel. After detecting a fissure in the ground, Leon comes back online. It warns Andy to evacuate the escape pod as soon as possible. Unexpectedly, the door switch malfunctions. Andy opened the first aid kit and found that the signal flare and hammer are missing. He tries to kick the door open to no avail, so he used the fire extinguisher to smash the glass and crawl out. The escape pod becomes unbalanced and tips over. His spacesuit gets torn in the process. The planet's oxygen level is only 2%, with most of the atmosphere composed of carbon dioxide. Andy quickly tears open the emergency bag and take out the sealant to plug the breach. There is still 42% oxygen left in his spacesuit. Before he can catch his breath, an electrical fire erupts behind him. Andy hurriedly scrambles out of the pod. The Polaris he was on earlier was just passing through the sky nearby. It crashed to the ground, triggering a massive explosion. The immense heat knocked Andy over. He quickly summoned Leon to scan what this place was. Leon reported that this place is 2.48 trillion kilometers from Earth. Records indicate that Andy is the first human to visit this planet. Leon also prompted him to name the asteroid.
Fuck off, Leonard.
Searching. The name Fuck Off Leonard is available. Would you like to use it?
Yeah, sure.
After receiving the command, it sent the name to the Registry of Extraterrestrial Bodies and Planets. Just then, Andy spotted a light in the distance and hurriedly set off toward the light. On his way, he passed by the burning ship, holding onto a glimmer of hope. He asked Leon to scan for any active tracking devices. Unfortunately, the occupants of the escape pod were already dead. Andy could only continue toward the light source. Leon reminded him that it would take 48 minutes to reach it, and his oxygen consumption would reach 5%. Andy was eager to leave, not noticing anything unusual about the escape pod. In the center of the light ahead stood a man. Andy excitedly approached him to say hello. He learned that the man's name was Dwayne. He was responsible for communications in the Legion. There were 200 people on the Polaris, and Andy and Dwayne might be the only two survivors. Before Dwayne ejected from the escape pod, he checked the historical navigation records and found that they had only been in cryogenic sleep for 3 years and 4 months. The company decided to take a shortcut by passing through the asteroid belt to save fuel. This meant they were not where they were supposed to be at all. What Dwayne assembled were distress signal flares. He tried to send their location back to Earth. If transmitted directly, it will take 9 months. But Dwayne found a brilliant shortcut. As long as they went through the McCluskey-Hosen navigation station, they could reduce the time to 8 months. 8 months later, Earth would receive the message, and they would send the fastest ship to rescue them. That would also take about a year and a half.
What are we gonna do here till then?
I don't know. Start drafting a workman's comp claim? It's gonna be huge.
Dwayne declared that he would turn this planet into a Shangri-La level resort. He explained that the front half of the ship had fallen on the southern side, and there might still be some intact living quarters. Andy accidentally stepped on a wire and bent down to reconnect it. Dwayne was suddenly snatched away by an unknown creature. Andy realized Dwayne was missing, thinking he was just playing a prank. As Dwayne failed to reappear, Andy's oxygen levels began to drop again. He fired off a signal flare and then set off with Dwayne's gun in hand. According to Leon's scans, over 2,000 pieces of the ship were scattered within a 2-kilometer radius. Andy instructed Leon to filter out the largest piece, and then he headed in that direction. After walking 5 kilometers, he came across a cliff ahead. The artificial intelligence is so unreliable. Andy screamed in anger. He felt a sense of despair that he might die here. Unexpectedly, a woman's voice came through the communication signal. It was intermittent and difficult to hear clearly. Andy urged her to keep talking while he searched for a stronger signal. He stood on a mound of dirt, and finally, they were able to communicate. The woman in the communicator was named Naomi, and she was trapped in an escape pod. In an urgent situation, Naomi sent a friend request, sharing her coordinates with Andy. Leon advised against taking risks, because the terrain at those coordinates was unstable. The visibility was also very low, and it was a 7-kilometer trek, which would consume 30% of his oxygen. Moreover, Leon found an alternative route to locate the debris, which would only require an additional 4 kilometers to reach. Naomi sensed Andy's hesitation, and quickly explained, "I have enough oxygen reserves here, which can buy us some time to think about what to do next." Andy really couldn't just stand by and let her die, so he decided to take the risk and go find Naomi. As the sky darkened, the visibility decreased further, and Andy had a persistent bad feeling in his gut. He wanted Leon to scan the surrounding area, but the AI had also sustained damage, and some functions were unable to activate. Andy could only continue forward, but he had barely walked a short distance when he saw a stone roll to his feet. Could there be something behind the mound? Andy cautiously looked around, but he found nothing unusual. A shadow was quietly following him. At this moment, Andy noticed many small pits in the ground. He followed the tracks forward and found it a deep hole. The entrance was covered with a layer of white webbing. Andy quickly backed away. Could this be an alien spider's nest?
What, did you check it out?
Hell no, yo, my wife kills the spiders.
Though Andy tried to reassure himself that he was overthinking, the more he walked forward, the more white webbing he saw, and snowflakes slowly drifted in the air. Leon popped up just in time to warn Andy. The temperature has dropped by 42 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 5 minutes. Suddenly, something seemed to dart past in the darkness. Andy immediately turned off the spotlight. Naomi detected a bunch of tracking signals moving in Andy's direction. They were about 100 meters ahead of him, but Andy couldn't see anything. He could only have Leon connect to the approaching tracker. One by one, red signals lit up. Andy's heart is beating faster as the distance between them continued to close. He quickly readied his weapon. A signal flare suddenly ignited. The blinding purple light illuminated the monster ahead. Andy shouted and took off running, but the alien spider lunged at him, slamming him into an underground space. Andy thought he was safe for a moment, but the next second, the alien creature poked its body in. He could only grit his teeth and keep running. The giant alien spider locked onto Andy below, chasing after him, occasionally reaching out with its claws to grab at him. Andy's heart was about to leap out of his chest. He saw the exit just ahead, and closed his eyes and stepped forward. There is actually a cliff ahead. Andy tumbled down to the ground. If he hadn't been wearing the protective suit, he would have likely died on impact. At this point, Andy finally realized why Naomi could detect several tracking devices, because those crew members had all been eaten by alien creatures, and the trackers were all in their stomachs. Naomi urged Andy to calm down. "I'm showing that your spacesuit is leaking." Fortunately, Andy still had the sealant, and he used the last of it to seal the breach. He sat down on the ground to rest. Naomi, fearing she would be abandoned, continued to chatter on the communication channel. Suddenly, Dwayne squeezed into the channel as well. The guy was still alive, and his location was just 0.05 kilometers east of Andy. But there are still extraterrestrial monsters guarding that location. Dwayne's situation was likely dire. Andy was unwilling to go back to save him, and only wanted to find Naomi. He planned to stay in her escape pod and wait for rescue. However, the little oxygen Andy had left might not even last long enough to find Naomi. Meanwhile, Dwayne still had 61%, and could share some with Andy. That could sustain both of them to escape to Naomi's pod. At this point, Andy had no choice but to find Dwayne. Since he had broken his display screen, he could only rely on Naomi to guide him. Dwayne sounded out of breath, as if he were battling the creatures. Then, a purple flare shot up into the air. It turned out that it was released by Dwayne. Seeing his general location, Andy quickened his pace, and he finally found Dwayne.
I'm here! I'm here! What's the plan?
I know how to beat.
Dwayne's fate was still uncertain, and what's worse, there was more than one creature. Andy hid in the shadows, afraid to make a sound. When Naomi noticed that the area was filled with wreckage from escape pods, she immediately sent out communication requests to the deceased, and the next second, request alerts echoed from the wreckage. This successfully drew the creature's attention. Andy took the chance to dive into an escape pod, but Naomi had also sent a signal from this pod, and she couldn't turn it off. The creature heard it, and moved closer in their direction.
You have a calm request.
Okay, look, I've got an idea, alright? Just get ready to run.
Naomi simultaneously activated these escape pods, causing the alien spider to temporarily lose its sense of direction. Andy hurriedly crawled out of the pod and ran away. It's important to clarify here, Naomi was likely a junior supervisor, which gave her a higher level of access to the escape pods. She could issue certain commands. At this point, Andy found himself in a mysterious area, where the creatures hesitated, and wouldn't advance. But regardless, Andy could finally catch his breath. As expected, Dwayne was probably dead. At this moment, Andy had only 8% oxygen left, so he had to quicken his pace and move forward. Suddenly, a swarm of small bugs flew by, which looked like purple fireflies. Andy cheerfully greeted them. But it turned out he was too early in his joy. No wonder the alien spider didn't follow him in. Andy struggled to shake off the little bugs. The good news was that he was only 1 kilometer away from Naomi. The bad news was that another creature had appeared. He was bitten by a massive maw from below, and was immediately left with only one head. Andy was completely swallowed up, and he saw the creature's internal structure through his helmet. The scene was truly horrifying. Andy quickly activated Leon. He falsely claimed he was having a heart attack. Leon swiftly used the defibrillator, and the creature spat Andy out from the shock. He got up and crawled into a rocky cave, which turned out to be the nest of the alien fireflies. Andy scrambled out in a panic, and Leon informed him that there were 2 options ahead. The first was the ship debris 3 kilometers away. The second was Naomi's escape pod 8 kilometers away. Andy felt that saving her was a priority, so he gritted his teeth and headed towards Naomi. With just a second to spare before his oxygen ran out, he reached Naomi's side. She immediately opened the pod to let Andy in, and the urgent task was to free Naomi's leg. Andy opened the first aid kit and found a crowbar, and pried open the deformed metal. He finally freeing Naomi's leg. Fortunately, she hadn't broken any bones, just twisted her ankle. The two immediately began sharing oxygen. Each could provide about 30%. They planned to head to the ship debris together, to take their chances, hoping to find a living pod, or the life support system. As Andy looked at Naomi, he suddenly thought of his wife, but it seemed something had happened to her. Before Andy could think too much, several creatures appeared around them. The two took off running. Naomi had the AI administer some painkillers to her. She temporarily felt no pain in her ankle. They ran for quite a long distance, and quickly dove into a pile of debris. Naomi turned and fired a flare, then continued to run alongside Andy. They crossed a mound and reached a flat area, and finally found the largest piece of the ship's wreckage. But at the critical moment, the hatch wouldn't open. The monster was pinched off by the hatch, and the two hurried inside. The situation inside was grim, with the entire main deck collapsed into the control room. Fortunately, the cargo hold had a stable atmosphere, and if they could find a way in, they could breathe oxygen. However, there was a trail of blood on the ground, leading deep into the nearby control room. Inside lurked an alien spider, spitting out a pile of human remains, slowly passing by the two of them. Before they could catch their breath, a brand new species crawled down from the ceiling. Naomi accidentally made a sound, immediately drawing the creature's attention. The two quickly turned and ran. In the chaos, Andy accidentally closed the airlock. That was a complete disaster, as they could only open the airlock through the control panel outside. In other words, even though the cargo hold was right behind them, the two were stuck in this space, and unable to go anywhere. Yet Andy found himself feeling less afraid, because years ago, a truck had crashed into him and his family. His wife and son died on the spot, and only Andy survived. That's why he joined the space mining crew, to escape his past life. Maybe dying here was his fate. Naomi urged Andy not to think that way. It was just an accident. It wasn't your fault. On the contrary, it's thanks to you that I'm alive today. That means you deserve to live more than anyone. Naomi hugged Andy, only to find an alien firefly stuck to his back. The next second, the new species tore open the hatch. Naomi grabbed the alien firefly and threw it directly at the new creature. The two took the opportunity to escape to the cargo hold, but at a critical moment, the hatch wouldn't close. As the creature was about to charge in, Naomi jumped downstairs with Andy, but the creature followed them in. At this critical moment, Andy grabbed Naomi's sealant and threw it. The creature accidentally bit the casing, and get its mouth stuck in the sticky substance, but that wouldn't hold it for long, and they had to find a way to kill the creature. Naomi rushed out to draw its attention, while Andy figured out how to crush it with the hull. He had Leon filter out the launchable modules, and then climbed to the second level to activate it. Meanwhile, Naomi grit her teeth and kept running. At this moment, Andy accidentally turned off the lights, and the creature instantly stopped. Looking around, Naomi hid in the shadows, waiting for her chance, forcing herself to crawl into the hull, successfully deceiving the creature outside. On the other side, Andy crawled into the hull to launch it manually.
Not now, Leonard. Just walk me through this.
Plugging me in will short my circuitry and launch the pod.
Meanwhile, Naomi tied a light to draw the creature over. Andy quickly plugged Leon into the hull. He and Naomi reasonably crushed the monster to death. In the morning, the first rays of sunlight shone on the Earth, and the two saw a glimmer of hope for survival. The cargo hold surely had plenty of food supplies. They would definitely be able to wait for the rescue ship to arrive. The film ends here. It was visually exhausting throughout, and the plot didn't have any standout moments, but this is a DreamWorks production, directed by Will Speck and Josh Gordon of Ice Age, with Josh Gordon directing, and Spencer Cohen writing the screenplay. The main actors were also well-known names, and the creature design lacked originality. If you paid to see it in theaters, you might feel it was a rip-off. However, the lighthearted humor mixed with some sci-fi elements makes it suitable for watching online to pass the time. If you enjoy my channel, please click subscribe.